Happy Sunday. This is PFG Live, the podcast dedicated to the writings of internet philosopher. Hey man, why didn't you? Hey man, why'd you use a lathe when you could have just spun the shaper? Welcome aboard, everybody. We got a good crew in Discord. Let's see, who do we have here today? CJ Stevens is reporting 62 and rainy in East Tennessee. And he wants you to know that Mr. Gobbles says hello. Let's see, Dale says in the Edmonton, Alberta, says it's 0 degrees science, cloudy with high winds, and the power keeps going out. That's what D cells are for. Evil says the Metar is undecodable, but generally he is alive. Warren Jones in Sutton, New Hampshire says it's 48 degrees Frankenstein, sunny with a slight breeze, and the snow is slowly melting. Yes, it is. Bill Olney from Rome, New York says it's 43 degrees Frankenstein and cloudy. Welcome aboard, sir. Eric Moore with the pickles says it's 59 degrees, 39% humidity, 15 miles an hour southwest winds, clear skies in Kansas City Airport. And he goes on to list his relationship status and social security number, which we won't dwell on right now. Josh in sunny Winnipeg says it's Charlie Yankee Whiskey Golf. Its winds are 240 at 8 knots, visibility 15 miles, broken at 13,000, broken at 25,000, temperature 03, dew point -00. -00, people? Come on. Altimeter 2933. Nate Kramer is with us. Welcome aboard, sir. He says in Las Vegas, Nevada, it's 65 frank and sunny with a relative humidity of 13%. Sunny conditions will continue all day with gusts up to 11 miles an hour. Around here, we just call that breathing, sir. Over on the YouTube side, welcome aboard Dave G, who says, good afternoon. It's 51 degrees, sunny, winds northeast at 15 miles an hour, pressure 29.9 in northwest Ohio. Welcome aboard. Carl Tauber in the People's Republic of Rhode Island says it's calm winds, 52 degrees, and cloudy. Lovely. Well, in the Windham, New Hampshire right now, I will tell you, it is 58 degrees, according to the National Weather Service, but according to our very own measurements, it is 59.5 degrees Frankenstein with 57.7% relative humidity, and we are melting, and I cannot be happier. Let's see. I guess we got everybody for the moment. Manchester Airport reports winds are 270 at 11 knots, visibility 10 miles, few clouds at 3,500, broken at 17,000, broken at 25,000, temperature 13, dew point 04, altimeter 2967, and the remarks are unimportant. Mr. Paul Morley checks in from Dallas, Texas, where it is 53 degrees, beautiful and sunny. Perfect weather.
Perfectly.
So welcome aboard. It's good to be with you. It's been a weird couple of weeks, and I will explain that we had a delay in getting back on the air. Last weekend was Kiddo's birthday, so we had plans and stuff. So as we came up to that weekend, I'm saying I'm going to keep everything tight so that we can do the live, do the birthday fun, and everything is going to work. My computer heard me and said, I don't know how you say this in the Windows operating system and in the BIOS. I'm not sure what the code is, but there's a code for hold my beer, because the computer just started breaking. And we're going to talk about that today, because today's main topic, is troubleshooting. And the story of going from broken computer to back in the saddle is a really good illustration of the process of troubleshooting. And it is about my third rodeo. Bill says, did you let it know you wanted it to work? They smell fear. Well, they smelled a lot of fear here because it was not trivial. And I want to say thank you. We're going to mention Paul. Paul, thank you. And Ike helped out, and other people helped out. I'm going to forget people. And my buddy Claude helped out, and we're going to talk about him. He did a really good job. And we have some 3D printing news and monochromatic light source updates and some PFG Stones sightings in the field, and we'll go over all that stuff. In the meantime, let's see. We got some other reports coming in from the YouTube side. Mr. Tim Beattie, welcome aboard. He says at 1747 Zulu, which was not too long ago, winds were variable at 3 knots, visibility 10 miles, clear, temperature 2.5. Temperature 2.5, dew point -4, altimeter 2.996. Perfect report, Tim, except you didn't give your location. You got to give your location. So we're going to talk about troubleshooting today. We have some community notes. But before we get to community notes, let me give you a report from the Flat Cave. Okay, from the Flat Cave. All orders are out. I have a story for you. We're doing fine. We have inventory on everything, but some of them is about to go to zero. So there you go. I get this email from one of my customers. He happened to order a dressing stick, a Molly dressing stick. Molly-2 is the part number. Oh, Tim's in Chandler, Arizona. So earlier this week, I get the order, I wrap it up, put it in the box, boom, USPS, off it goes. It's total no-brainer, standard order. So I get this email that says, hey, I just want you to know, I got my order confirmation, and the shipping address is completely random. I don't know what that is. I don't know who it is. There's a person and an address, and it's not me. He says it auto-filled some random address. Now, it's a computer, so I get it. I don't know how they work either, as you will see today. So I go into the system. I send an email back right away. I said, we will take care of you. I go into the system, and sure enough, his bill to address and his ship to address are different. And they're in different states, and he has no idea who that ship to person is. So thankfully, it was a small order. I don't know how I'm going to handle it exactly, but I'm going to ship a replacement, first thing tomorrow. And then we got to figure out what to do. But some random person in another state is getting a Molly 2 stick. And I don't know what they're going to do with it. But will I ever get it back? I have no idea. But stay tuned, because it's possibly one of the weirdest shipping stories. One of the weirdest shipping stories we've ever had. So that's the story from the shipping department. Miss Evils reminds me, our Discord server is seeking boosts. So we need a couple of boosts. If you are a Discord user and you know what I'm talking about, throw us a couple of boosts. That would be really nice. I think it was a year ago that we boosted up, and we got a couple of features that we wanted, which included the high resolution video and something else. So we're getting notification that we're about to run out of boosts. So we'd like some boosts. And there you go. It's a Discord only thing you have to worry about. If you are a YouTube or audio consumer, don't worry about it. You could, buy me lunch one day. In the 3D printing department, as you are no doubt aware, PFG stones come in these delightful red trays. And they have since the very beginning of making and selling PFG stones. And in the beginning, they were made out of PETG, basic PETG, nothing fancy, okay? And over time, that evolved because we were printing on Prusa printers, and then the Bamboo came out. Then we started printing on the Bamboo printers, and then Bamboo came out with PETG HF, which is high flow. And again, gradually over the course of months, we switched over to PETG HF. And now in the last, month or two, our stock has been going down. So I'm like, I should go order some more PETG HF. Well, there was 0 available. And I'm like, I'll check in a week and they'll have inventory. So I wait a week and it's like 0 inventory. So I'm like, okay, plan B. And there's a lesson here. Put an asterisk on that. Plan B, I went looking for other filaments. So my second favorite, or one of my favorite suppliers, is Polymaker. And sure enough, Polymaker has a PETG, but they didn't have a refill. I wanted the filament on a cardboard core that slips into the plastic spools that Bamboo makes, if possible, because then I don't have to throw out a cardboard and or plastic spool. Well, they didn't have that, but it turns out that Overture had a Bamboo compatible refill, and that's what I wanted. So I ordered the Overture PETG, basic PETG in red, as a refill, and I ordered 6 of them. And they came in, and I was very impressed. I did a post on Instagram, really brief little video. I guess it turns into a reel. But I was very happy. Now, ironically, when we started printing the first PFG Stones trays, they were Overture filament. So I started with Overture filaments. I believe it's owned by Amazon. Not sure. But so I get this filament in. I rip open the box, and sure enough, the filament is in a foil bag. Now, if you followed the PFG.Live for any length of time, you know that we did a big study on materials and containers for filaments that would keep the moisture out. Mr. Tim Beatty says, I ripped the cardboard spool off the Overture. It works exactly like a refill. Sir, it's exactly what I did for, like, I don't know, months and months and months, maybe a year, 2 years. I'm not sure, but I did that. And in fact, I have the adapters that you stuff into the between the cardboard spool, which was a little big, and the Bamboo, which is a little small. I have the adapters downstairs. Kind of didn't want to deal with that, but yes, could have done that. So it shows up. It's in a foil, vacuum packed plastic foil bag, which we proved in our studies was the ideal material. The vacuum is superfluous, but it does indicate whether or not it was punctured. Okay, I refer you back to previous PFG lives where we talked about the humidity game and trying to get a handle on that. Also, some standalone videos, I believe. So I was impressed right out of the gate. Opened the thing up. Their refill is an exact copy, not exact, but it's a copy of the Bamboo approach. Plastic wraps around the filament, cardboard core. The only thing missing was the RFID tag. I don't care. It turns out in the X1Cs, I never used the RFID tag, and I actually turned that feature off. So it pops into a spool, no problem. I throw them into the dryer. So 3 spools of that, and my last spool of PETG HF went into the dryer, out of the dryer, and I ended up splitting printer X1C number 1 and X1C number 2 into all PETG HF and all the new filament. And then last night I ran a test. By the way, PFG.Live 2024 10/06. So October 6th of 2024. Evils is telling me that that's when we started talking about the humidity tests. So then I needed a profile for the new Overture filament. And here we are. It's a new day. It's a new age. So what did I do? After failing at finding it online, and the requirements were Overture PETG, Bamboo X1C, give me a profile. Couldn't find it. Got close, but couldn't find it. So I went to Claude AI, my buddy, and I said, hey, Claude, help me figure out this profile. Well, it actually took a little longer than it maybe kind of should have, but we took the Bamboo PETG basic. That was the starting profile, and then the file is what changes from that. And that's a JSON file. We figured that out, made a new file, got it into the printer, and there's a detail there, and went ahead and printed a tray. So if you're watching on video, here's a standard 6-inch stone tray, beautiful nomenclature on the bottom, Trayosity on the top, and this is the Overture version of it. Okay, Trayosity on the top, nomenclature on the bottom, and if you hold these up to each other, you'll see a tiny color difference. I don't know if you'll see it, in our video today, but the quality is outstanding, and it's gorgeous. And we arrived. I took the profile, the JSON profile file, and I put that into our 3D printing channel on the Discord server, and I couldn't be happier. So we have a substitution, and we will be translating all of our files into that filament. So the way I've set it up is I have a folder of the project, the .3mf files sliced under the Bamboo PETGHF, and then the ones that are sliced under the Overture, and then I also have ones that are sliced under the Polymaker PETG. So I can now run out of filament from one manufacturer and go to a second source, write those words down, go to a second source and get a different filament, and I'll be back on the air without much trouble. Had this failed, had it been a pain in the ass to get a good result out of the Overture, we would have gone to plan C. But I'm very happy to report we have a backup, and it looks great. So that was a very good result from the 3D printing department and the bamboo printer. So also earlier in the week, I have my my 3-inch Toolmaker's flat, which is lapped on both sides. Oop, there's my microphone. Can we get that? You guys on audio, I'm playing around with it on video. So I've had this sitting on the desk as inspiration, and I've had just protective tape on top of it, and I finally made a 3D printed cover, which looks simple, but it has a few interesting features to it. And the two basic features are 3 nubbers, which actually deform a little bit to make a nice snap-on, doesn't fall off cover, but also around the outside, it keeps the surface of the plastic off of the major working surface of the flat, so it doesn't scratch. And I made a couple of those, and they came out great. So I could share, when I get around to it, I'll share the details of that, and you can resize it. It's parametric, so you could resize it for other things. But if I were to be selling Toolmaker's flats, this is one of the things that absolutely it would include. But I don't have that plan right now, unless you bug me incessantly. Evils wants to know if I considered etching that surface and inspecting the grains under a microscope. No. No, I haven't. But see my video on that, and you'll get more details. Yes, it's 52-100 steel, which is the same steel that most gauge blocks are made out of. So that's another update from 3D printing department. A third update is kind of blends into one of our topics. And if you guys have questions or comments about 3D printing, let's get that out right now, and we can talk a little bit about it. I don't think I have any surprises from the 3D printing department. I'm actually very pleased with how that is just a no-brainer. It's a tool we just use. The thing I focus on is making it so that I don't have to think about the tools. And that's why the low flow dry air project happened. That's why we standardized on filaments that we know work. And everything else we do, setting up the 3D printing department, is toward that end. And right now I'm very happy with it. My son, Jared, says to me, he's working on custom keyboards. It's very interesting what he's doing. And he just says to me, "Hey, what printer's available?" I say, "Printer number 5. He says, "Okay." And he goes and he prints his stuff, and we don't have to think about it. It's working out great. Good teamwork too. Paul Morley asks, "I'm trying to find out the reason the bamboo filament is out of stock. Chinese New Year, ? Or other ? And the answer is, I have no earthly idea. It could be in part Chinese New Year, but that's over. That's February-ish, I think. I could be wrong. But Mr. Tim Beatty says, "Bamboo changed the 3D printer game. I have X1C2. Let me say that again. I have X1C as well, and am in the process of H2X purchase." I was where you are. So I sold, I had 4 X1Cs. Along comes the H2D. And Dale will take credit for beating me over the head to say that I needed an H2D. So I bought an H2D. And I said, this is a very good printer. I sold 2 of my X1Cs. They're awaiting pickup. And I bought another H2D. So now we have a pair of X1Cs and a pair of H2Ds, and I like that setup. I like having 2 identical things. It's good from a troubleshooting point of view. See what I did there? And it's also good from a, if something breaks, you have backup, and you also can swap parts, etc., etc. So that's where I'm at right now. 2 X1Cs, 2 H2Ds. Paul says, "I'm trying to find out the reason." We covered that already. Robin has entered the chat. Welcome aboard, Robin. Dale correctly says the phrase, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And for extra credit, somebody find out the origin of that phrase. You'll get a prize. Robin says, on the Bamboo X1C, he used to get the lube the lead screw message very frequently. I don't print a lot, but I haven't seen this message in ages. I'm not sure, but they might have software improved that. Because I got, we got several updates over the last few months, and they probably improved that. I think it was a timer, and the timer was ridiculous. So that's very good news, Robin. Thank you very much. Also, there's a guy that makes a very nice tool that you clamp on the lead screw. I know there's a couple of them. And he made a model which is parametric. And I printed some out, and that and some Kim wipes, and you're cleaning lead screws like a champ. Let's see, his somebody help me with this. He's a Canadian. Sorry. It's need one, make one, or something like that is the name of his channel. He does a bunch of stuff, but he has that on Maker World. Need It, Make It. Thank you, Evils. Need It, Make It. And he's a good guy. So it's a nice little tool to clean the lead screws. Let's see. Yeah. So that's the news from the 3D printing department. Everything else has been really spectacular. So talked about that. So as you are no doubt aware, so okay, here's the origins of the phrase "as you are no doubt aware." Before I lived in this town, I lived in another town, and my next door neighbor was a character. And one day he comes over to me and he says, "As you are no doubt aware, we've completely changed our kitchen." Now, I've never stepped foot in this guy's house. I don't know what he was talking about, but he led with, "As you are no doubt aware." Anyway, it's stuck. So that's been the origin of that story. We'll try to keep giving you the origins of all of these earworms. But as you are no doubt aware, I've been working on a project for a large optical flat illumination station. And the problem we're solving is that we're going to 8-inch laps. We're going to 6-inch work. So the part that we're lapping is 6 inches, and we need to use an 8-inch optical flat on a cleaned part to inspect it. Now, I have a smallish helium lamp, which works great, and it's designed for small-ish work. So when you use an optical flat, see my video on optical flats, you're looking through the optical flat and you're looking at the interface between the optical flat and the work. And when you illuminate it with a monochromatic light source, you can get interference. Notice I said you can. You can get interference between the reflected light off the work and the reflected light off the back of the optical flat, and they interfere or reinforce, and you get bands. Those bands are life, okay? That's where your data is. So when you are looking at the bands, you're actually also, the background of the band is the surface of the illuminator. So a small illuminator works for small work, but for big work, you need a big illuminator. So that's the project that's been cooking for a little while. No. So Mr. Tim Beatty asks, do you need oil between the optical flat and the work? No, it's air. And the the funny thing is, and again, do go back and find that video I did. It has a good explanation of how the optical flat works. But when you put the optical flat down, let's say you had a perfectly flat,
I can't think of any.
A perfectly flat surface, okay? Then if you put the optical flat down on it, you would think that it will molecularly attract itself and bond to the flat work. Well, it's not what happens. It's going to push out the air, and eventually one side is going to touch, and then the other is going to sit on a cushion of air, which it can't squeeze away, because at that scale, the air is very thick. It's like sitting on grease. Okay, so you end up with a wedge of air. And then if you have a wedge manipulation tool, okay, which this is a black one, but if you have a purple one, you should have a purple one. For you guys on audio, it's a purple Sharpie. You can push on the optical flat and force it to move its wedge around. And I'm not going to get into why that is so, why you would do that, but you can do that. And you could also do some tricks to do visual observations, which are accurate. Robin and I have talked about that before. But what we really want to end up doing is A, have a big illuminator, and B, I want to put a camera on the axis perpendicular to the work. So originally I was going to, and I still may someday, do a beam splitter so that I have one path that is the illuminator, and then the 90 degrees to the beam splitter is the camera. So I can illuminate at 90 degrees to the work and observe at 90 degrees to the work. Then I decided I was going to simplify, and I'm going to put a camera in the center of the illuminator. So you have a big illuminator, big source of monochromatic light, nice and diffuse, even, and then right in the center of it you have a camera. Yeah, and the camera's sort of in the way, but you can live with that. You could live with missing a little chunk of illuminator in the middle. So I started designing the illuminator and seeking, and I had some ideas. I'm not going to get deep into that right now, but I had some ideas that originated from antennas, from reflector antennas, from parabolic reflectors, from semi-parabolic reflectors. I had some ideas that originated from soft boxes. Like I do a lot of, all my life I've done photography. Soft boxes are a known deal. That's kind of what we wanted. We wanted a soft box. Well, long story short, I talked to my buddy Claude and I said, hey, Claude, I would like you to search the entire world's knowledge and help me with this design. Now, Claude is not the first guy I talked to. My friend Chat, who Claude knows, but they don't talk to each other. My friend Chat also had opinions, and he had overcomplicated opinions, but I accepted them. And then we started coming up with a design, which I liked for this. It's basically a big softbox, but I'll call it an illuminator. And if I gave you a verbal description of it, it would be as follows. Remember, it's pointing down. So it's going to be elevated and pointing down. So at the top of it, we're going to start with a shell, a wooden box. It looks like an empty drawer, okay, with the open side down. We're going to paint the inside of it white. Then inside of it, we're going to hang our favorite low pressure sodium lamp, which is right here, okay? And it's going to hang horizontally, and it's going to be spaced off of the back of this open drawer that's inverted. And here's where it gets interesting. Then after another spacing, there's going to be a baffle, okay? Because we don't want the light from the lamp going directly out. We want it bouncing off of the soon-to-be painted white interior of our upside-down drawer or box, okay? So there's a baffle of a certain dimension which prevents direct light from coming out from the bulb. It has to bounce off of the diffuse surfaces, all of which are painted white. And then underneath the baffle is going to be another spacing, and then there's going to be two diffusers, okay, to make it nice and diffuse. And they'll be plastic diffusers commonly used in lighting technology, and that completes the description of this box, which is the illuminator. Except for one thing, the camera. I don't have the details of how the camera is going to mount yet, except that the baffle, which is right below the bulb, is going to be a structural element, and it's going to hang the camera. So what I did do is I did look at my inventory, and I have this lovely Anchor camera that has good resolution, good quality, and is USB-C. This is an Anchor. It's a 200 series. I think it's a 210. I'm not sure. But this is going to be the camera that is going to be looking down at the work. So in order to properly position the camera, I 3D printed, I designed and then 3D printed this model, which is a holder for the camera. And I will show it to you. Camera goes in there. So this is what will be looking down from the center of the illuminator. Okay. The back of which is going to be access to the USB-C and then a couple of screws. Again, details to follow. The one thing that came out of this 3DP project is I printed an initial, I quickly got to P1, right? P1, how long does P1 have to last? Correct, 15 minutes. So I quickly got to P1, and it was the shape that the camera had to fit into, and it was these two holes on the back that are for heat inserts. And that worked really well. Of course, the camera was not like captured, so I could push it right through the hole, but it was all the right size. Then I kept working in Fusion, and I came up with P2. And I needed a little block that captured the camera so it didn't fall out the front. And this is where this aha moment for me came. Instead of printing a new thing, I printed the difference. So I printed the little block that I added to my model. And in Fusion, instead of saying extrude this and join, I said extrude this to a new body. So then I printed this little dinky block, and I got out our favorite cyanoacrylate, pick your poison. I like Bob Smith Industries, and I glued it in. Well, that was P2 officially, and that worked really well. And then I wanted the front to not only be white, but I wanted it to cover everything up and look good. So again, I designed an extrusion of the part, but instead of doing a join operation in Fusion, I did a new body operation in Fusion, and I made this little disc, and I glued the disc on the front, and that's what gave me really P3, even though I called it P2. So now this guy is going to go in the center of the illuminator, and it's going to be looking down, and it's all white. Okay, so it will help whatever light hits it, it will continue to reflect it in a diffuse manner. So that's where we're at. I have a friend of mine, a close personal friend of mine who is a woodworker. And I think I'm going to get some help from him in building this box. We have my two friends, McMaster and Carr, that are going to help me with the plastic material. And then I have a little bracketry figuring out. And I also have to figure out where the ballast is going to mount. And I've got to figure out where the USB-C cable is going to go. So that's underway, and I am very excited about it. I'm also intensely grateful for a customer that is as patient as they come and told me, I don't want it done fast, I want it done right. And this is coming along right. So stay tuned, and I will keep you posted on the monochromatic illuminator for absurdly large things. By the way, whatever we come up with here, which might be 24 by 24 or 30 by 30, can be expanded to a larger thing. That's actually easy. Once we have the concept figured out, bigger is not going to be a problem. Yeah, Dale says, well, at least you got the slow part nailed. So in this case, the slow part was thinking about it. The slow part was coming up with the concept that we could bring in for a landing. That took some brain cycles. Mr. Carl Tauber, who I respect greatly, is got a question. Carl, you're on the air. Hello.
The question is, are you planning to do metrology with this setup, or are you just looking for the shape of the fringes?
Okay. Your question is appreciated. I will now answer your question. I'm going to... So I'm sorry, I didn't finish the story. I'll put here's where we're going with this. The camera that I talked about, I didn't tell you what I'm doing with it. The camera is going to go into a computer, and the computer is going to be running a piece of software called DFT Fringe. DFT stands for Discrete Fourier Transform, and Fringe is probably a commentary on my mental state. And DFT Fringe, if we haven't talked about it, I don't remember if we ever really talked about it, will look at a fringe pattern that you're generating, and it will do all sorts of math on it, resulting in, amongst other things, a map of your deviation from flat. So the DFT Fringe is open source, and it is a product of the Telescope guys. So the Telescope guys do this sort of thing, and they're measuring. Previously discussed by Cyrus Lloyd on PFG.Live, 2025-11-23. So we talked about DFT Fringe. But the idea is that I could take my work, measure it, hit the button, and the computer is going to generate an analysis for me. The thing I like about that is it's much easier to talk about numbers with your client and say, yeah, we're within a nanometer all over, or in the interior 80% of the surface, we're within a nanometer. Outside of that, we're hitting 10 nanometers or whatever the numbers are. And you could have that conversation very quickly, as opposed to saying, here's sort of my interpretation of what my eyeballs see. You'd send them a screenshot, you'd send them the data, and off you go. So that's the ultimate, that's where we're going. That's why we're spending all this time making a monochromatic light source with a camera in the middle, so that we're illuminating at 90 degrees, we're observing at 90 degrees. Do you have to illuminate and observe at 90 degrees? No. You can actually illuminate and then observe and have an angle between them and then compensate for that angle. So the software is capable of doing all sorts of corrections. But a fundamental principle of precision engineering is that if you're depending on the compensation, you're asking for trouble. If you design it so that it's absolutely perfectly, then your compensations are minor corrections. So that's where I'm going. I want this thing to theoretically be perfect. Practically, it has the knobs to tweak the errors out. So did I answer your question, Carl? You could tell me in chat, but I hope I did. So stay tuned. I'm hoping to get this thing built so that the next thing I'm whining about is the software. But that's what I'm excited about, is getting real numbers out of this thing. Also, if you haven't been following Grimsmo Knives, my friend John Grimsmo, he's working on some other cool stuff, which is like vaguely related to what I'm talking about, except he's working on a teeny scale and I'm working on a big scale. And he's doing some white light stuff and I'm doing monochromatic stuff, but basically, hi John. Thank you, Carl. Carl says I answered his question. So that's the monochromatic update from Monochromia. All right, so moving on. I got a nice message from Mr. Keith Rucker, who, it was really funny. I'm sitting there eating lunch. Let's see. You can see this picture. I'm sitting there eating lunch, and this is what it looked like that day. We were a snow and ice covered mess. But I'm sitting there eating lunch when and when I'm eating lunch, I frequently will have a YouTube video up on the screen. So what YouTube video do I have up on the screen? But Keith Rucker of VintageMachinery.org, who is working on his mill roller things, and I'm having a good time watching it. And all of a sudden my phone goes badoing, and I pick it up, and it's a message from Keith Rucker. and I said, you won't believe who I'm watching on YouTube. So we had a little yuck over that. But he said he sent me some pictures, and he says a whole bunch of the students in the scraping class are using PFG Stones. So he sent me these pictures, and I thought that was awesome. And it was like it was an honest 2/3 of the class were using PFG Stones. And of course, when you get orders for PFG Stones, you have no idea anybody's connected with anybody, except for one student of his said to me, "I need to have these by this date, and if not, can you ship them down to?" Well, anyway, I got it to him, but he needed it for the course. Well, I didn't realize that a lot of other guys needed it for the course. So here are some pictures of PFG Stones seen in the wild. This makes me extraordinarily happy to see these things getting used by people who are working toward perfect flatness. So thanks, guys. I appreciate the update. That was just awesome, really. Oops, there we go. Thank you, Keith. Oh, we got one more picture. Sorry. There we go. I think, do I have any more of his artwork? Let's see. Yeah, here's the overview of the class. Look at these guys going at it with the scrapers. And I wish I could have been there scraping with the rest of you. That was awesome. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. Appreciate that update. Let's see. So today's main topic. I'll do one more community note. I got a community note here. If anybody has documentation on 10EEs, one of our community members is seeking documentation, drawings, blueprints, help with rebuilding a 10EE, specific knowledge. Get in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with Dan, who goes by Machine Shop 10EE on the various channels. Oh, on Discord, he's Machine Shop Dan Gilbert, and we will get that going for you. And I will hook you up with Keith Rucker to make sure that we've squeezed everything we can out of VintageMachinery.org that has all sorts of documentation. Happy to help. Yeah, so it's the shoe size. 10EE is the shoe size. Okay, good. So troubleshooting. Oh my gosh. So one day, I don't remember how it started. The computer locks up, freezes. I tried A, I tried B, I tried C. I finally had to do a restart on it. Everything was fine for a while. Then I get what we used to call it a blue screen of death. Yeah, stand by, Mr. Tim Beattie. Stand by. Now they're black. I guess blue was out of fashion. Now they're black, but they still, at the very bottom, they have a code. And I started taking my phone out and taking pictures. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So this was happening repeatedly. And this is the computer that I built for myself 4 years ago, and it has been absolutely solid. So now I'm thinking, did hardware failure? Capacitor blew up. Something. So I start calling friends. And I talk to a couple of friends, but my friend Paul, who lives relatively close to me and is an awesome buddy, and just in the computer world knows his stuff. Boy, Paul, you are closer to the truth than you could possibly know. So I call Paul up and I describe the situation to him and he says, "Oh, okay, it could be a few things, but it sounds like a memory stick failed." I'm like, okay. So we talk some more and he says, "Oh, it could also be your processor. Like sometimes the processors, when you have a cooler attached to the microprocessor, you use, the gouge, the heat compound or the thermal compound. That's it." And he says, "How old is your computer?" I said, 4 years. He says, "Yeah, you might want to clean that off and put new compound on it. Sometimes it gets wonky and you can get hot spots." I'm like, okay. So I start trying A, trying B, trying C, unplugging USBs. I go in and I pull the memory card. Oh, so the BIOS on my computer has a memory test built in. So I boot into the BIOS and I say, "Test the memory." And it says, the memory's fine. Like, ugh. So I talk to Paul. Paul says, "Pull a stick out and run on one stick." So these were 16 gigabytes each. So no problem. The computer will run on one stick. So Evil says, "But surely you lapped them to match at temperature." Dude, I did stone it. I cleaned the processor. I cleaned the cooler. I did not stone the processor because I didn't want to lose the nomenclature, but I did stone I actually felt a little something on the cooler, and I got the PFG Stones out and I did stone it. So yes, I did. PFG Stones were in fact involved. Yes. So I ran the memory tests, no results. And then, at some point I thought I had a result. I had a failure and I'm like, "Ooh, I had a failure." And I was running on memory stick number 1. I was careful to label them, by the way. And then I swapped them and I ran it on memory stick number 2 and I had no failures and everything was fine. I'm like, "Oh, my troubleshooting is going quite well." And then I swapped back to memory stick number 2 and I could not reproduce the failure. So I go back to Paul, and Paul says, "Yeah, you really need to get memtest 86. So in the thumbnail for this video, you'll note that there is memtest 86 running in the background. Well, memtest 86 has been around since cavemen were carving microprocessors out of stone. But it's an awesome tool, and sure enough, I ran that at great length, and basically proved to myself that memory was not the problem. By the way, some of the information I'm giving you right now is a little bit out of chronological order because of my brain. So it wasn't as clean a linear investigation as it sounds. But following the memory stick path, I got to the end of the path, and it wasn't. Now listen to what I'm about to say. It wasn't a memory problem. Asterisk. Okay. Then I said, "Well, what if it's the processor?" So there's a few tools out there that will stress things. Paul says to me, "Oh, it's probably a driver." So I downloaded a tool that he recommended called CCleaner 7. And he says this is a very good tool for checking your drivers and checking, a bunch of stuff. And he says, just make sure your drivers are up to date, because Windows 11 did some things that require the drivers to be up to date or you get a crash. I have been dealing with this. This is Paul talking to me. I have been dealing with this, and I've had to update drivers to get Windows 11 secure from causing a problem. So I update the drivers, and what do you know? I had some drivers that were out of date, so I made sure all the drivers were up to date. How good am I? Okay. So is it the processor? So I downloaded some other software called, hang on. Yeah, so there's a piece of software called HW Info 64, and it will tell you all sorts of information about your motherboard's hardware. It also has tools in it for stressing the processor, memory, video card, and disk, and stressing, right? So I started a stress test on the processor, and I watched temperatures. And interestingly, of all of the things I was able to observe in my system with respect to temperatures, the processor temperatures were the most dramatic and closest to the limits. So here I am. I'm like, ooh, I'm getting close to the answer. I think it was after that I cleaned the processor and put new thermal gouge on the freshly stoned cooler and processor. So it was getting warm for sure when I stress tested it. But then I learned through reading that the processor contains the memory controller for the board. In other words, in some previous incarnations of motherboards, you had a whole separate department of memory management. And now in this processor, they're doing memory management. I don't know the details. I am...
I'll have you know, I am an expert.
I am not an expert. So I ran the memory stressor at the same time I ran the processor stressor, and boy, those temperatures went up some more. But you know what? They were not out of a reasonable range. So I go back into the BIOS. I made the fans all more aggressive, but really they were already cranking. And I basically convinced myself that it was within tolerance. How do you like that? Hi, Proteum. It was within tolerance, not the podcast. And it was warm. I even got out my thermal imager, and I looked at the motherboard and everything. So now we've stressed the processor, we've stressed the memory, we tested the crap out of both of them, and we're doing okay. Now I focused on the GPU. GPU is a NVIDIA. Yeah, the user was stressed. I'll tell you what. NVIDIA RTX 3060, I believe, is the graphics card. And there's this really cool GPU stressor called FurMark, FurMark. And I stressed the crap out of the GPU. No problems. Temperature went up, temperature plateaued, no errors detected. Okay. At this point, I go to my buddy Claude and I say, no, it wasn't 90C, Mr. Tim Beattie. It was, I think 70C was the worst I got. So that we were doing okay. So at this point, I said, okay, let's just try the system again. Try the system again. Crashed. Rebooted, crashed, rebooted, crashed. And it crashes in different ways. Put an asterisk on that. It crashed in different ways. I get a black screen of death. I get a frozen system. Those are the two ways it happened. I was not grokking that they were different. So I sit down with my buddy Claude. I said, listen, here's my symptoms. Okay. And by the way, if you don't know, I'm talking about Claude AI, a product of those guys. I gave up on, I didn't give up on, but I elevated my opinion of Claude because of other things. Anthropic. Thank you, sir. A product of Anthropic, who, by the way, got me as a paying customer as a result of a bunch of stuff recently. So I go to Claude and I tell him all these symptoms, and Claude's like, "Oh yeah, man." He said, "Give me the driver versions. I want to know the driver versions." So I give him the driver versions, and he goes, "Oh, the NVIDIA driver you're running is in fact the latest driver, and it is full of bugs." I'm like, "Oh no, you have to be kidding." So it says, "Look," and I'm paraphrasing a bunch of this, of course. It says, give me your dump file, give me your event. So I give it the event log, the dump file, and this, by the way, is a really cool thing you can do with the AIs. Is like, give them a file. So here's the file, analyze it. Claude goes away and analyzes. It says, you're crashing at this memory location pretty consistently, and you're running this driver version. You have to go back to you have to revert to a previous known good NVIDIA driver. The entire internet is talking about the driver problems from NVIDIA. So I talked to some humans, and the humans say, yeah, there is problems with the recent drivers from NVIDIA. You can't just update anymore. You have to make sure. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I say, Claude, what do I do? So Claude says, go get this tool called, I can't remember, and I don't want to go to it right now. And it will not only uninstall the driver, it will clean up your whole system from all evidence of that NVIDIA GPU driver, and you can install the old one. One of the things it tells you to do is turn off Windows updates. You could pause Windows updates and make sure you don't do any updating automatically, because we're going to go back to an old version. Like, okay, I did that. Long story short, followed the instructions. Claude was excellent in telling me how to get the file, how to install the file, get it up and running. And you know what? System came up. I went in, I specifically turned off updating for the GPU driver, and everything started working. And I was a happy camper. So one of Webb's rules of troubleshooting is it's never one problem, it's always two problems. Okay? Just remember that, because we're about to get to an interesting part of the story. So I was literally sitting right here in my chair, scrolling through something, not looking. I was actually sitting like this, not looking at my screen, basking in the glow of success. I have fixed my computer, which was critical, because I couldn't be talking to you if I didn't fix my computer. And that's one of the reasons we canceled last week. It was not only the birthday, it was this, right? So I'm sitting in my office, the lights are off, and I was just lit by the screens, and I was scrolling through, Facebook or Instagram, and guess what happened? Yep. Black screen of death. I'm like, for frog snacks. So, yeah, pride does. Yes, thank you, evils. Pride does cometh before the fall. And I'm looking forward to spring. So, I don't remember if I just gave in for the night, rebooted, went to bed, but eventually I made it back to my buddy Claude. And I said, okay, listen, it crashed again. And Claude's like, give me the files. So I give Claude the log files, the event files, the dump file. And Claude starts analyzing. And when I say that Claude starts analyzing, I don't mean it's like, oh, I mean, it sat there for 10 minutes. And I got phone calls that the Hoover Dam was slowing down because of me. Okay. When it was all done, it came back to me and said, you had 5 crashes. I guess this was overnight. You had 5 crashes at this memory address, which proves, and you're running on the old NVIDIA driver, which everybody knows is a good one because everybody's talking about it on the intertubes. And you have these 5 crashes. That means it's not just the driver. And I said to Claude, well, let me continue. So Claude thinks, he says, what was going on when it crashed? I said, I was sitting there on my phone. I was doing nothing. I was doing nothing on the computer. And Claude says, okay, this is a clue. He says, the crashes when you're not doing anything is interesting. Did it ever crash while you were in the middle of something? And I kind of said no. He says, okay, based on all of that evidence, and I'm going to use some words here that are simplifications of what Claude actually said because I had to figure them out. Based on everything you told me, it's a problem in the BIOS of your computer, whereas when the computer is not doing anything, it turns off cores of the processor in order to save power. Windows 11 has ramped up its power efficiency tuning, and I think that's the problem. Oh, yes. Evil's asked a good question. Did you check if your motherboard BIOS was up to date? So this computer was 4 years old. So the BIOS was 4 years old. So part of the story, back when Paul said make sure all your drivers were up to date, Paul also said make sure your BIOS is up to date. So the motherboard, in fact, I did do a BIOS update. And it was fun to do because I had to learn how to do it. So yes, the BIOS was up to date by 4 years. Good question. So I go into the BIOS and I find the section. I had to do a search. My BIOS has a search bar to search for a thing, and I searched for it, and there it was. And Claude says, turn that off. I don't remember the magic name for it. I turned it off and I rebooted the system. C states. Yeah, that was part of something having to do with C states. Yes. Paul says, by ramped up, do you mean made the default power settings more power conservative, i.e. use less power? So yes, I think Windows 11 started to get much tighter on making power usage more conservative. And these two features crashed. Windows 11 was demanding just more than the motherboard was able to do, something like that. So we're going to get back to that in a second. So I turn off this feature, which involves C states, okay, in the BIOS, and I booted back up, and I went to Claude, and I said, okay, I did it. And Claude says, okay, talk to me in a couple of days. Literally, it said, just run the computer now. And it's been perfect. So it's never one problem. It's always two problems. And it was which, by the way, I'm about to explode that. Just stand by. The NVIDIA driver was a definite problem. The C-states was a definite problem. It was ironic that I was using Claude, which is made by Anthropic, which is running on NVIDIA GPUs to solve a problem on an NVIDIA GPU. And everybody I talk to says, oh yeah, NVIDIA has abandoned us. And NVIDIA, all the video card users that put NVIDIA on the map, this is not my words, I'm reporting the news. Basically, the updated drivers are shit. They just literally 48 hours ago retracted a release because they said, oh yeah, we screwed that up. This is not the NVIDIA of, a year or two ago. So I'm using an NVIDIA GPUs on which Claude is existing to solve a problem with an NVIDIA GPU. Did the demand for AI reduce the quality of the software coming out of NVIDIA? Because it wasn't a hardware problem. This was a software problem. By the way, I'm supposed to say that as a hardware engineer. The second thing was this C-state Windows 11 thing, where Windows 11 says, again, this is my interpretation, we're turning the power conservation up to 11, and the processor C-state says, yeah, I almost can do that, and it was crashing. So between those changes, the computer has been absolutely stable. So, yeah, Mr. Tim Beattie is basically saying that the 3060 is an old card, so they're not going to be supporting it as well. I understand that. That's not the problem. The problem is I don't think software is being tested properly. Yep. Jeff says, yes, no money in common folk and video cards, and you get intern devs using Claude writing your drivers now. I know. Claude is my intern. So maybe Claude had some inside information. I wrote down 5 steps of troubleshooting. One is, what's the problem? Sometimes the problem is not the problem. So what's the problem? Step number 2 is, no, really. Because whatever answer you came up with for number 1 of what's the problem, now you need to think further about it, because that's not the problem. Step 3 is quite different. Step 3 is, what's the other problem? So when I was having these crashes and these freezes, I didn't realize, because it was not obvious to me, that I was having crashes and freezes, and they were not the same. That was not obvious. And I forgive myself for not having seen that. But I was having 2 things going on at once. Both of them related to updates. Windows 11 update, NVIDIA update. Why? Because you should keep your computer updated, shouldn't you? Of course you should. Latest update. Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, number 4 is, what's the solution? Well, that's where you spend most of your time. Yeah, so Eric. Oh, yeah, Robin. Thank you, Robin. You reminded me. So, okay, we're back in high school. And in our math department, we had a PDP-8 computer. We had a computer. Okay. And it was in a classroom. I wish I could remember the teacher's name. He was a good guy. It was in a classroom, and there was a metal cage around it on 2 sides. It was in the corner of the classroom. We had a PDP-8 and a deck writer printer. And it had a deck tape drive. And a 10 listen carefully, a 10 megabyte cartridge disk drive. Looked like you were sliding a pizza into the pizza oven. Outside of the cage was a card reader, and part of the course was you'd write programs and you'd put them in the card reader, and it would go into this PDP-8 and it would process them, and you'd get a printout, and it was cool. Okay. Our printer died. Okay, our deck writer printer. This was a dot matrix printer using the 132 column paper. So this guy comes in to fix it. I guess he was from DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation. And he's going to fix it. And he's like, oh, okay. This happens sometimes. So he pulls out the logic card, which was like, jeepers. It was like 12 inches by 10 inches. And he puts in a new logic card and he fires the thing up and it didn't work. Oh, he says, all right, it's probably the motor driver running the Framaducas. Pulls out a motor driver, puts in the motor driver, and he fires it up. Still doesn't work. Robin is nodding his head. I could see you, Robin. Even though I can't see you, I could see you. Finally, he says, I wonder if it's the power supply. And he gets out his Fluke, 77 or what? Actually, that's much later than that. But he says, oh, it's the power supply. And he swaps out the power supply and everything works. So when you're troubleshooting, and this is another rule, is check the power supply first. Thank you, Robin. Check the power supply first. The arrow goes this way, not that way. Okay. Another rule is, what about next time? So there's going to be a next time. For me on the computer, I now have all these cool tools now. I've got programs to look at the drivers. I've got programs to stress the hardware. I've got programs I have tools now. I didn't have tools before. I have tools now. That's important. Substitutions. Let me get to that in a second. Mr. Tim Beatty says your updated BIOS caused the C-state issues. I don't think so, but I can't prove it. I'll disagree with you on that, but I can't prove it. Tim Beatty says a TRS-80 cassette tape computer. Yeah, that came later, dude. Let's see. So, okay, Eric says, this is not an endorsement as I have yet to use it, but was suggested to use a piece of software called Shut Up 10 as a way to help rein in Windows 11. So my favorite guy for that stuff is grc.com, Gibson Research. And Mr. Gibson, who I respect greatly, wrote a piece of software called Never 10 when 10 was coming out. And then later he wrote another piece of software that wasn't called Never 11, but it was called, I can't remember, something control. But if you go to grc.com under freeware, you'll see his product also. And I think those are useful. Let's see. Protium says, really makes you wonder if these firmware issues are caused by AI being used to help write firmware at the organization level. Yes. I'm just going to leave that as yes. I agree. I think we could vibe code, right? So I think that's a possibility that the quality of the software releases is going down because less reliance on humans, more reliance on our buddies. Yeah. Dale says, I can't wait till they use AI to write the control software on I think he means our CNC machines. That should be fun. Totally agree. Eric says, I had my Windows 7 Okuma M460 blue screen on me once. I don't want that experience again. Yeah. Proprietary software, proprietary hardware. Good luck. Have a nice day. Dale says, next time skeet shooting should be high on the list just for your mental health. So I came this close to just going down the street and buying a computer. I'm glad I didn't. There's nothing wrong with the hardware. But this, yeah, I was very frustrated. Isolating the problem. So one of the things that I don't think I did very well on this, well, I tried to do on this project was isolating the problem. Like cut it in half and look and test one half. I did that by testing the memory. I did that by testing the processor. I did that by straining things. So I kind of convinced myself that certain things were not the problem, and I think that's an important thing to do. And keep a logbook. One thing I didn't do a good job of at the beginning of this problem was keeping a good logbook of what was going on. Later, I kept a good logbook. In fact, I have the entire transcript of all the Claude conversations, and it actually reads pretty interestingly. And if anybody cares, we could we could make a book out of that. So I think we made a few good points here, but you know, troubleshooting is its own art. And there's the old story of the retired mechanical engineer who helped build this industrial plant, and he's enjoying his retirement, and his phone rings, and they said, yeah, the plant is down. We can't figure it out. There's a problem somewhere. We can't find it. We don't know what it is. So he reluctantly heads over to the factory, and he walks into the factory, and he listens. And he listens. And he walks up to a machine, and he climbs up on a little step ladder, and he takes out a piece of chalk, and he puts an X on a panel. And he says, take that panel off, and there's your problem. And all these, new kids are looking at him like, what are you talking about? So one of them goes up there, takes the panel off, opens it up, looks inside, and says, holy cow, he's right. At which point, he goes home, sends them an invoice for $10,000. You know the rest of the story, don't you? And the invoice read, piece of chalk, $1. Knowing where to put the X, $9,999. So, know how to troubleshoot. It's the most valuable thing. And you know what? Honestly, in the last couple of weeks, I have 2 people knocking on my door. You know what they're asking? Could you bring your piece of chalk in to take a look at this problem? I'm not kidding, by the way. I'm not exaggerating. I just can't tell you who they are. And I said, yeah, I could do that. Wait till I get the bill. Oh, okay. Eric says, I wonder if it's that the quality is similar. This is AI versus manual. But the checks and balances are now no longer there, or AI is replacing key points where mistakes would otherwise be caught. This was my younger brother's father-in-law who worked. Oh, Eric says, this was my younger brother's father-in-law who worked maintenance at a local Colgate Palmer plant. I absolutely believe it. Because I think it's also a story that repeats itself over and over and over and over again. So who did I call? I called the expert. Now, I want to close today because I know we're over time, but I'm having such a good time unloading my brain so I don't have to think about it anymore. I want to talk a little bit about AI in closing. Yeah, we crap on, quote, vibe coding, close quote, where you're asking the AI to write you software. Okay. But honestly, it's a tool. And if you use the tool correctly, you're going to get results that are valuable. I talked to Unix Carbide at length about this because he's been exercising AI and seeing what it's good for. And I came to a conclusion. I ran it past him. He agrees. And that is, if you treat it like an intern, like an eager intern, if you treat it like an eager intern, you will start to get results. In other words, you're the old wise one, and it is the eager intern. So a couple 2 weeks ago, I said, I had a couple of reasons led me to do this, but I said I'm gonna use Claude and I'm gonna write software. And Ike sent me a coupon code, discount code for three or 4 or 5 days of Claude AI for free at the pro level. So I said to Claude, I want to write a clock. So I again see previous videos. I designed these featherboard I call them featherboard workstations, okay? And this is what I used when I was developing the hygrometer, which we'll talk about more another day. And I said to Claude, okay, I'm using an Adafruit ESP32-S3 reverse TFT board. I want to make a clock. The clock will be using an NTP server to set itself. And I want A, B, and C. And I'm not going to give you the whole story, but long story short, here it is. Here's my clock. Okay. It's running really cool code. It is syncing with an NTP server of my choice. It hangs on my Wi-Fi, and it works beautifully. And you see that faux 7-segment display? Okay. That was Claude's idea. Claude said, we're talking about the display. I said, make it bigger, make it smaller, make it, we're interacting, going around the loop. And Claude says, I got an idea. How about we make it like a 7-segment display? And I'm like, it said, that's what it's like on old gear. And it's really classic. And I'm like, do it. And it wrote all the software to make this 7-segment display. And if you look closely, you'll see the quote unlit segments. And it's like, it wanted to make it classic. It came out great. Okay, a couple of questions coming in. Josh says, so what happens when the eager intern uses AI? That's a really good question. Stand by. Yeah, Dale says, listen here, Claude. You haven't got nothing on this 60-plus-year-old single-core CPU with bubble memory. Don't laugh, Dale. I have a piece of equipment in the lab that has bubble memory. Proteum says, are you doing this in the web UI, Claude.ai, or in VS Code? I am doing, that was all done on the web UI. Okay? That was all web UI. Although, because I'm not advanced enough to want to plug it into VS Code. I recognize that there are plugins and stuff, but it worked great. And okay, Robin, take care. I promise you got like 90% of the good stuff. See you later. So I got used to having the web interface in a big screen, and then 3 folders open. One, the download folder, my project folder, and then the folder which represented the Adafruit card. Comes up as a folder. And it would give me a piece of software. I would drag it. I would download it. It would show up in the download folder. I would drag it to my project folder, and then I would drag a copy of that to the card, and it would run. And I had this little loop going, and it worked out pretty good. One of the things I learned when treating the AI as a eager intern is saying to it, okay, I want you to go over it again and look for bugs, look for efficiencies, and make sure you document it. And I can't tell you how many times it would go back and look at its own work and say, oh, you know what? You don't need that anymore because you did this, and it takes it out. Oh, you know what? This thing is actually wrong. I'm going to fix that. Oh, and I've documented all these things. And then you look at the code and it's like, it's not bad. So it was up to me to say to Claude, okay, now go back and look at it again. I mean, there's an old saw about Henry Kissinger having an intern. And and this, by the way, this story was from before AI, so you know it's right. He gave the intern, he said, I want you to write a report on this particular topic. So the intern went away, came back, put the report on his desk, and the next day the intern had the report with a sticky note on it, and the sticky note said, you can do better. Well, the intern said, oh, gee, okay. So works his butt off, puts 4 days into the project, generates 3 inches of paper, double checks it, brings it in and gives it to Kissinger, and Kissinger puts it in his inbox. Next day, the intern gets it back with a sticky note on it. Sticky note says, you could do better. Well, now this intern is like, bullshit. And he's like, okay, watch this. Gloves come off. Absolutely researches everything. Distills all the information. Makes calls. Double checks. Generates this 4-inch stack of paper. This huge report. This magnificent report. Executive summary. Checks all the facts. Walks into the office where Kissinger is sitting, and he says, listen, I have worked my butt off on this. There is nothing about this topic that isn't in this report. Everything's been fact-checked. It is as good as it gets. And he puts it on Kissinger's desk, and Kissinger says, okay, now I'll read it. This is what you have to do with the AIs. And you will get better results out of them. And you will get useful stuff. Treat it like an eager intern. And you will start to get results. Okay, guys, you're awesome. We had a lot of stuff to catch up on. Hopefully next week we will have been caught up. In the meantime, if you want to join us in the After Party Roundtable on the Discord, you're welcome to do that. If you are not yet subscribed, head over to the channel and subscribe and turn on the notifications. If you need something flat, or something to make something flat, head over to PFG.Stones.com, get yourself a set of flat things, and we will help you out. And the best thing I could do for you is recommend that you get flat, stay flat. We'll see you next week.